Hi, I'm Jen, and I'm the ballerina inside Robert Pattinson. Quick reminder here at the top that my channel is a safe space for all viewers. That means that Black Lives Matter, and we are here to support our queer and disabled viewers. Please let me know in the comments or with a quick email if I can do anything to make my content more accessible or inclusive. Today's video is planned with me for Preptober. And for those of you unfamiliar, Preptober is using October to get ready for NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And this is the binder that I've created in order to get me through that super important time. So for Preptober and other projects, I tend to create little binders, and I think that's probably a leftover trait from being a stage manager for so long. I like to create little tiny ones so that I don't get overwhelmed with a whole bunch of empty space inside of the binder, and so that it's easy to keep things neat and organized and move them around, which is super important in the early stages of planning, as I may be adding things and taking them apart pretty frequently. I hope that if you're watching this video, you know that this is my full-time job. So if this looks like way too much work for you, don't worry about it. This is like the 10th or 12th year that I'm doing NaNoWriMo. Many years without doing any planning at all. Sitting down at midnight on Halloween and starting a brand new project. So if that's you, you're not doing it wrong. There is no wrong way to work on a novel in a month. This is actually the first time I've created cover art for a book that I kind of think fits the aesthetic. And right now the project is called Showtime because of Beetlejuice's quote. So I just gave it its title, a paranormal romance, and wrote my name on the cover. This sort of makes it official and reminds me what I'm doing every time I come to the binder. During the month of October, it's important not only to start planning out your novel, but also to figure out how your life is going to look in November. So I've separated it into tabs. We've got writing life, the big picture, character, setting, and plot structure. I've also created my binder using a few different sources. So you'll see pages that are from Natalia Lee's Preptober workbook, from the NaNoWriMo Prep 101 guide, and then from a couple of other different places that I'll explain as I go along. And here on the cover, we have some of the pictures that I've already pulled from Pinterest that had me inspired from the very beginning of this project. So I'm a Nano Rebel this year, which means I'm working on something that I've already started. So some of these pages are actually already filled in. I like kind of over planning for the month so that I have more events in my calendar than I can attend, which leaves me with options. This year especially, all of the events are going to be digital. So that's why I just have live streams, Maryland Discord, and the NaNoWriMo calendar. Typically, I would also go to live events at libraries and things like that, but this year that's not going to be an option. The next page is some stuff from the Preptober workbook from Natalia. This is the writing schedule that you create. This is your word count calendar for the month, and then a word sprint tracker. And that is when you do like 15 or 30 minutes and find out how much you can write when you just focus entirely on writing as fast as you can for that time period. So this tracker page is where you're going to keep track of how long you wrote for, how many words you wrote, and how many sprints you did that month. The next page here is from the Nano Prep 101, and that's the non-noveling checklist. The non-noveling checklist includes things like stocking up on writing fuel, making sure that you have some recipes picked out or that your meals are planned if you're in charge of that kind of thing, divvying up your chores, making a do not disturb sign, informing your friends and family that you'll be writing this month. These are the kinds of things that are going to make your writing life go a lot smoother. The next page is also from the NaNoWriMo prep list, and that just has blank spaces because there may be things that you have that don't fit into this list, or things that you want to save for December, and instead of worrying about them during October and November, I'll include a link to the full worksheet in the description below the video so that you can print these out yourself or go ahead and click through them as the month goes on. Once you've got your writing life organized for November, you know what events you want to attend, and you have your meals pre-planned, and you've given other people the responsibilities of all your chores, you can move on to planning the big picture of your actual writing project. So Natalia Lee gives you some steps to figure out what the basics of your favorite novels are. And I've already filled these out, again, because this is a project I've already started. So these are all notes that I took while thinking about showtime. Then you narrow those down to picking a premise, your idea, and the problem, which gives you your premise. And then you figure out what your mood is going to be. As you can see, I'm a big fan of angsty fiction, so that's what I'm working with here. Then you gather up all your crazy ideas on this page here. And this is where I've written down things that came to me late at night, which is just the phrase, lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. Love those 3 a.m. thought bubbles. And then things that I saw on the Monster Mash radio playlist on Spotify, and other things that just sort of sparked my interest, scenes I want to write, things like that. The next couple pages are that same beginning topic from the NaNoWriMo 101 worksheets. So this is going to figure out what your genre is, who your main characters are, probably a general idea of setting. That's all going to go here. But if you haven't made any of those big decisions yet, you can also keep them all organized and sort of work on one or the other until you've settled. And then again, from Natalia Lee's book, these are more like what the title would be, the back cover blurb. So those kinds of things that give you an overall kind of umbrella look at what your novel is going to be about. Now here's an example of another source that I've pulled from, and these are the 44 key questions from the Ride the Pen website. Some of them I may fill out, some of them are just good to kind of keep in my brain. These two sections from that list are the subtext and the kind of miscellaneous. So that's questions about the title, questions about the theme of your story, all those sorts of ideas that again relate to the big picture of your novel. The next section of my binder is the character section. And here I actually pulled from an older novel idea, which is all the pictures from the main character of last year's NaNoWriMo novel, because I really liked that character design, but I know for a fact I'm never going to do anything with that actual novel. So I pulled that character design and applied it to my main character for this book, which is Meg. This is kind of another page where you can plot out your visuals, create profiles. These are really fun exercises to help push your brain in different directions. And again, I've pulled from specific sources, but if you want to build a character folder with things from a book that you have on your shelf or another website that you really like to read, this is where I would stick that stuff. This is that same topic, but again, from the NaNoWriMo 101. And what I really like about the NaNoWriMo prep section is that it goes through some different authors' plans. So it'll show you how one author has created their complex and believable characters. Then it'll give you a questionnaire from a different author's blog. And that's what all of this stuff is here. And that breaks down actually from main characters to side characters to antagonists. And then it gives you big character questions. And then it gives you some links to where this information came from. And then a blog post with even further questions. I really like these types of things that push your character further. And then I also like kind of scrolling through Tumblr and looking at those like sleepover questions or the types of old chainmail emails that we used to send to our friends because I'm old, that have questions in them that can sometimes be embarrassing or a little bit silly or offbeat. Because again, that makes you think about your characters in ways that you may not typically do, or that a typical writing reference book may not make you think about. So I really like compiling all of that here in this binder. And then if I never get to it, or if I decide I don't want it later in the month, I can pull it out and throw it away. But for now, I actually printed out 2 copies of the extra 51 questions, one for my main character Meg and one for my main character Jason. Now we move on to the setting. The setting is a really fun thing to play with because you can pull visuals from all over the internet, and then writing guides both make you think about what that setting looks like and how it relates to your storytelling and what it reveals about your character. So these are things that if you just start writing and aren't planning ahead of time, you may not ever really think about until you've already finished your novel. But because of all this planning and these exercises, you're forced to think about things in ways that relate to one another. Again, a lot of exercise pages, and these are exercise pages that have to do with different settings in your book, why you're including them, how many scenes happen there, and then the same from the NaNoWriMo workbook. Some ASMR while I turn the pages. These are 20 extra questions, once more, that NaNoWriMo linked to in their further resources. And their website actually breaks this down into 6 weeks. So it starts 2 weeks into September and then goes through the 4 weeks of October. I am going to keep my preparation for NaNoWriMo limited to October. So I don't do things in the same order that NaNoWriMo has them organized, which is why if you're paying super close attention, you'll see that these numbers up here are kind of pulled apart and out of order. The final section in my Preptober binder is about plot and structure. Obviously, this is a major piece of the novel itself and will have a lot to do with the actual writing, but because this is all preparation work, it's kind of the last thing you come up against. You want to create your characters, create your setting, figure out what the themes are going to be, and then you want to start organizing your plot. You may make more discoveries about your characters and your setting as you're moving through your plot, but if you don't know who or where you're working with, there's really no story to tell. So I have started actually with some prompts, again, that I pulled off Tumblr and that I really liked, and I circled some that apply specifically to these characters and the setting that I've been working with. One was about fan fiction, and specifically romantic fan fiction, and different kinds of kisses that you can write about, which I really liked and saved because this is going to be a paranormal romance. So that's actually just inspiration here at the beginning of this section. Again, we're working through basic story structure, and then a lot of pages that are just blank for outlining the novel. I've already done a little bit of this work, which you can see in my 10 steps to writing your novel video, but I'm going to make sure that it's organized in a way that I really like, and then start writing those scenes in order as I go through NaNoWriMo. The Nano 101 has 3 major ways of organizing your plot. And the first one is the Jot Bin Pants. The second one, I think, is the roller coaster. Yep, here's the roller coaster. The third one is this 9-step plot dot. And then fourth is the 3-act Save the Cat, which I have done before and have printed out here at the back. And then there's a 5th one, which is Katie-tastic. And then there's a video that you can watch, which I will probably watch later this month, and try to incorporate some of these scene pieces that I have already chosen. Here's the plot section from the Ride the Pen website, which has the 44 key questions, followed by their questions about dialogue and language. The final piece in my Preptober binder is actually kind of aspirational. These are all worksheets that go along with 30 days of articles on The Guardian on how to write your novel in 30 days. I haven't read the actual articles, and they sort of break down into these 30 days of worksheets. So if I have time, I will also be working with this section of sheets. But if not, it's just sort of here to remind me that there's another resource that I can jump around to. I also may kind of mess with this during November, depending on what my goals are and how I'm going along with that. So I'm keeping it here in the binder just in case I decide to work with it later. But for now, it's not really incorporated into the rest of the work. And that is my Preptober binder for the most part. I would love to know what yours looks like and whether you use a binder or a bullet journal, whether you plan for November at all. The typical traditional way to do NaNoWriMo is to sit down at midnight on Halloween with maybe a vague idea or a mood board in your head and start writing. And then 50,000 words later, you've got something. But I've been doing that long enough that I know that doesn't work out as well as I would like it to. So this year I'm coming in a lot more prepared than I ever have before. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, as well as subscribing and ringing that bell to get notified every time we have more content on our channel. You can find a link to my campsite bio in the description below, which has links to all of my other profiles.
Are you always this articulate?
Hercules. My name is Hercules.